What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. So Lakers Suns, two teams trying to generate more three-point shots under new coaching staffs, and they both did. Lakers took 40 in this game, up from their average considerably last year, and the Suns took 39. I thought the Lakers, we're going to start on the Lakers, I thought they looked mostly sharp on both ends of the floor, especially in the half court. They looked organized. They ran a lot of action on the majority of their trips down the floor. They've added a lot of this like guard-to-guard dribble handoff stuff at the beginning of possessions. Most coaches call it a weave. We ran a very similar offense to that when I was playing at my first junior college, similar to what the Lakers did too, where sometimes it was vacant and sometimes you'd have a big kind of operator around the top of the key. It looks a little funky with the Lakers just because typically that is designed to help guys get downhill. The idea there is like, let's say there's two guards that are kind of intersecting. If they're doing a dribble pitch to each other, if they don't switch, then there's just like some traffic, like some bodies that the primary defender has to work his way through as they're weaving past each other. And if they do switch, you have the opportunity for one defender to be kind of his momentum going one way as the offensive players going the opposite way, and you might get to turn the corner. The thing is the Lakers don't really have athletic guards. So that's the one reason I've never been a huge fan of that style of offense. Sean Miller used to run a dribble weave with the University of Arizona men's basketball team here in Tucson. And obviously being from Tucson, it's like the professional sports team here is like Arizona basketball, right? And so when Sean Miller was there, like I kind of hated when they ran that dribble weave offense. It just seems like any like focused defense is going to be able to stay out in front of that. But we're seeing a little bit of that. I don't want to get too worked up about it because it's early and who knows what additional stuff JJ Redick's going to add in time to make that function. And honestly, too, one of the other things too is I think anytime you implement new stuff, it just takes time for guys to figure out how to use it to the best of their ability, right? So, but in general, they ran a lot of action. They looked very organized. They got great shots the majority of the time that they ran action. They generated more threes. A couple of specific ways that they generated more threes. One, AD picking and popping or AD spacing to the three-point line. So a lot of those AD catches that were turning into mid-range jump shots, just looking for stuff more out by the three-point line. There was a classic LeBron AD ball screen where AD, instead of kind of popping to the elbow, popped out above the break and he knocked it down. And that's the thing. I think he took 3 threes, if I remember correctly, or maybe just 2. But like, he made one of them. And so like, even if you miss the other 2 threes, I mean, that's 3 points on 3 shots. The math is working to your advantage there by just turning some of those 80 pops into threes. He doesn't need to shoot 38% on from 3. If he shoots 33% out there, it is the equivalent as if he made 50% of his pick and pop jump shots out around the elbows, right? And so again, it's a different situation when you get into late game stuff and field goal percentage matters more on a single possession. But over the course of the regular season, you can squeeze a little bit more value out of your offense by turning some shots that typically turned out to be 2s, turning them into 3s. Similarly in ball screens, the Laker ball handlers are looking to take more 3s out of ball screens instead of mid-range 2s. Once again, just the exact same kind of mathematical argument I was just making, just finding ways to squeeze a little bit more efficiency out of their offense. They still maintained the identity of their offense. They were attacking the paint relentlessly. They had 60 points in the paint. They shot 61% on 2s. LeBron and AD were bullying their way down there a bunch. They got to the foul line plenty. I thought LeBron and AD both looked great. How about 36 points, 13 rebounds, and 7 assists on 15 for 22 shooting and 3 for 6 from 3. Not bad combined from LeBron and AD in one half of play. They look in shape. They look locked in. They looked ready to go. Dalton Connect looked comfortable in both games, getting to his spots. He's big and strong, and it's always the first thing you're looking for when you watch a college player coming into the NBA level. Like, how do they look physically alongside other pros? And there was a specific play that I really liked that they ran twice against the Wolves, And it was like a horn set, and it involved like kind of like a decoy ball screen where Rui like faked like he was going to go set a ball screen. I think it was for Austin or D'Lo. I can't remember who it was that was on the right side. But then instead of setting that ball screen, he would just veer off and set a quick like off ball screen for Dalton Connect to come downhill towards the foul line area. And the first time they ran it, he got downhill and he knocked down a little 15-foot jump shot off the dribble. The second time they ran it, they ended up switching it, and all of a sudden Naz Reid was on Dalton Connect. And Dalton Connect just ended up making a hard dribble drive move to the right, and Naz was kind of trapped behind him. And Dalton did a good job of using his size to kind of shield Naz off so he can finish with that right hand at the rim. Like, that's the thing, like the ability to be big enough to seal bigger and more athletic players off at the rim so you can find angles to finish. That's impressive. There was some stuff with the two-man game with AD, especially against the Suns. Well, I say especially, it was the only time AD played. Against the Suns in particular, he had a little two-man game going with Anthony Davis off the right side where he looked comfortable. One time he hit AD popping back out for like a little 20-footer. And then the second time he got into that little elbow area and rose up and confidently knocked down a pull-up jump shot. The catch-and-shoot jump shot is not going down for Dalton Connect yet. He hit a pretty nice movement one on the left wing, coming off of like a crazy little off-ball action to the left corner against the Wolves that he knocked down. But I think he's 2 for 10 on catch-and-shoot jump shots so far. But he is shooting well off the dribble, and he looks comfortable in that specific setting when he's feeling the ball. I'm impressed so far with Dalton Connect's first few opportunities to play in the preseason. The Laker offense looked more or less exactly how I expected to look. Fucking good. It's a good offense, just like it was good to end last year. They scored 69 points in the first half, despite not shooting the three ball well. There were a lot of like payoffs, like big plays where they ran action and got a wide open corner three for Austin Reeves, or a wide open corner three for D'Angelo Russell, or wide open three, and they just weren't going down. And they still got 69 points, despite not quite shooting up to the level that I thought they were capable of. So I thought it was a really impressive first appearance for the Laker offense over the weekend. And I expect it to get better as JJ Redick continues to implement his stuff and kind of round out some of the details. On the defensive end, it was a mixed bag. The transition defense in particular was exceptionally bad. They gave up 33 transition points to Phoenix on just 26 possessions. That's 1.27 points per possession. Now, the Suns are in general a very efficient transition offense, although they don't run as much as I'd like them to, but I was encouraged by how much they ran. We'll talk about the Suns here in a minute. But like on tape, it wasn't just the Suns making magical basketball happen in transition. The Lakers just weren't doing their jobs. Like, I talk a lot about how the first two things you have to do in transition defense is stop the ball and then stop the rim. If you do those two things, like let's say you're in a situation where you have 3 bodies underneath the baskets, your floor balance is a little off, and but you have 2 guys that are above the break. Those 2 guys, as long as they sprint back and one of them stops the ball and one of them puts themselves between bodies and the rim, then at the very least, you're probably going to force them into a jump shot. And it's a make and miss league, right? Like the best jump shooters in the world are, if they get to a mid-range shot, might hit 55, 60% on the 3-point line. A good wide open look, they might hit 50%, but you buy yourself a chance for a miss there, right? But there were a lot of possessions against Phoenix where they were giving up dunks and layups because guys were back, but they just weren't matched up or they weren't communicating. They looked really, really sloppy in transition. There were some possessions with bad floor balance. There was a possession in particular where all 4 players were below the break. 4 of the players were below the break and 1 player was above the break, like as the shot was going up. Like those are those little details I was talking about in the season preview where it's like you always got to like kind of have your spacing set up properly, not just to account for keeping the defense spread out so you can create space for your stars, but also in terms of floor balance, so that you have guys that are capable of getting back in transition defense. Not a good first impression of the Lakers starting lineup in terms of their transition defense. And it's just disappointing because it's something they've talked a lot about in camp, about wanting to be better at, and they just certainly don't look better yet. But again, there's a lot of sloppy all over the place in preseason. We're going to talk about the Suns. They looked really sloppy last night too. So like there's a lot of that kind of stuff that you can expect to get better over time as these teams continue to get back in the flow of NBA basketball. The half-court defense for the Lakers, I was really impressed by. They held the Suns to 0.91 points per half-court possession, which is very good. I thought they did a really good job of contesting jump shots without fouling. There were a couple ones in there. There was Jackson Hayes in particular was just committing foul after foul after foul in ball screens. And D'Lo, I think, got Devin Booker on a three-point shot on the right wing in transition. But for the most part, they walled up. They watched their feet. They did a good job contesting, chasing guys off the line, too, and forcing them into contested twos. Phoenix took 16 two-point jump shots outside of the paint and made just 2 of them. And a lot of them were contested. There was a lot of Phoenix players taking tough, contested mid-range jump shots and falling down and looking at the refs when the Lakers were just doing their job, contesting shots. I thought that was impressive. LeBron and AD were really smart in their help on the back line. I'm going to show you guys a clip of that. We're going to do Timpf's tape. That's going to be an everyday thing from now on. There's going to be I have 9 clips from all the games that I'm going to be showing at the tail end of the show today. And I'm going to show you guys some examples of LeBron and AD. One example of LeBron and AD just being really smart in their help. There were some issues for the Laker defense. Devin Booker was being guarded by D'Lo a lot early in the game. And Booker obviously was just very comfortable getting to where he wanted to get. Jackson Hayes, like I mentioned earlier, as soon as he checked in, he just immediately committed a couple fouls and ball screens. I think he committed 3 fouls in the first half in ball screens. And it's just the same thing. It's every time the ball handler comes downhill at him, he just hacks. He's just a hack. And so that's something he's going to have to figure out if he's going to become a more reliable backup center in this league. But again, overall, I thought they looked sharp. I thought they looked committed. They don't need to be great on defense to stay afloat in the regular season. They just need to be average. 15th in defensive rating. If they can kind of hang around there, I think they're going to win a lot of regular season games. Last note on the Lakers, as far as Bronny goes, yeah, he's not very good right now. He needs a lot of reps. It's probably going to be pretty bad for a few years, right? But we all knew that was going to be the case. Bronny was a guy that coming out of high school was viewed as a legitimate NBA prospect, and he lost an entire year basically of real repetition and rhythm at USC because of his health condition. And so it's going to take some time. He was already a very raw prospect to begin with. There's going to be some people out there that are going to capitalize on every ugly low light of Bronny's early career here. And you're going to do yourself a favor by just acknowledging that's what it is. Bronny's going to struggle because he's not ready yet. And so there's going to be a lot of mistakes. As far as the Lakers go, I don't think Bronny has any chance of cracking the actual rotation when they get into regular season games. They might, as a novelty, throw him in a situation when the game's out of reach to get a moment with LeBron, but he's not going to be playing for a little while. So it's not a big deal. How flawed he is at this point just doesn't matter. The big thing is he's just sloppy and he makes a lot of mistakes. He kind of traveled in a little hop step through the lane. There was an illegal screen that he got called for on Devin Booker where he literally hit him like a football sled and moved him 4 feet. That's going to be an illegal screen every time. He had a defensive rebound once and started dribbling up the floor, just didn't see what was happening around him and got picked from behind. He just looks sloppy and a little bit out of sorts. And that's going to take time. He's going from playing at the high school level to barely playing at USC to now he's being thrown in against the best players in the world. So it's just get ready for it to be a little sloppy and acknowledge it for what it is. On the Suns front, they looked a little clunky. AD was sagging off of Mason Plumlee and clogging up the paint. The Lakers were doing a lot of switching, especially 1 through 4, and they were just doing a good job of contesting their pull-up jump shots, like I talked about earlier. KD and Devin Booker want to combine 7 for 22 from the field. As a team, as I mentioned earlier, they were just 2 for 16 on 2-point shots outside of the paint. Tyus Jones, he brought the ball up the floor a good amount of the time, but I don't think they really benefited much from it. First of all, the Lakers are not much of a ball pressure team. They're not a team that's picking up full court and making things difficult. So, you're not really getting an upside from having him, Tyus Jones, navigate ball pressure in this particular matchup. They weren't running as much off-ball action with Tyus kind of as the passing hub as I thought they would. He kind of just brought it up the floor and then made a swing pass, and they just played like the Suns from last year in a lot of ways in terms of the way they initiated offense. Where I did see the difference immediately was just generating more threes. Went 16 for 39 from 3. I think that's 41%. Couple of specific ways that they were generating more threes, more kickouts, especially on catches from the elbow. There was a two-man game between KD and Devin Booker where Booker slipped. This is also in the Timpf's tape that you guys will see, where Devin Booker slipped to the foul line and he caught and he looked at the rim and he had a shot. But instead of taking the shot, Dalton Connect had rotated over as the low man and Bradley Beal is wide open in the corner. And so instead of taking a shot that Devin Booker can hit at a high percentage, which is that mid-range shot, makes a kick out to Bradley Beal, who shot over 40% from three last year. That's 1.2 points per shot. That means Devin Booker would have to shoot 60% on his mid-range jump shot to be worth more than a Bradley Beal catch and shoot three from that corner there. And Bradley Beal knocked it down. That's just like a little detail too, like just more catches at the elbow than instead of turning into ISOs or turning into quick decisions and kickouts. The Suns had 33 assists on 43 made field goals last night. That's awesome. That's a 77% assist rate. That's like off the charts good. That's a really good marker to watch for the Suns this year in general. This is something I talked about in their season preview. Last year, they had a 66% assist rate in wins and a 60% assist rate in losses. That is a super wide disparity compared to some of the other teams in the league. And so, like, that's something we want to watch with the Suns this year. Like, for them, a good marker is like if they get an assist on 2/3 of their shots or more, 2/3 of their made field goals or more, that's a strong indicator that they're getting into their drive and kick and they're generating quality shots and they're not settling for too much on an island basketball. They got a lot of good looks in transition. That was the major offensive upside that I saw from last night. The Suns weren't much of a transition scoring team last year. To give you just a very basic stat, they were very efficient because they're super skilled. But when they just didn't do it as often as I'd like to have seen them do. They ran on 22% of their possessions last night against the Lakers. That number was about 18% last year. And so again, just if you think of it on a very basic level, like the Lakers had a good half-court offense game, getting about 1 point per possession. Like in that 1.00 to 1.05, and in the half court, you expect your offensive rating to be lower because it's harder basketball. You're playing against a set defense, right? So every opportunity you have to get out in transition and get something easy before the defense is set, those are your opportunities to influx a bunch of efficiency into your offense. And so again, I thought that was something that was a kind of an upside to the offense last night. It was the one thing that kept the starters close. And because again, you're never really looking at the scoreboard in games like this because like after the half, they just play all the end of the bench guys, right? And but like the Kevin Durant, Devin Booker units were -8, and it could have been much worse without their transition scoring. And so that goes to show you just like how you can one area of the game, one margin. Remember, I talked about JJ Redick and like trying to expand margins for their team to help them win games in the long run. And JJ was talking about it through offensive rebounding. Here's an example of it through scoring in transition. The Suns dominated the transition battle last night, kept a game close that otherwise could have gotten ugly for them. Again, a little sloppy for their first outing, but I thought the Lakers looked sloppy in their first game against Minnesota too. Like this is their second game, so the Lakers are further along in this process. So it's nothing to overreact to. But I was hoping to see a little bit more out of the Suns offensively, and we'll see what we see later on in the preseason. One last shout out on the Suns front, Ryan Dunn. I thought he looked really good. He guarded LeBron a bunch, picked him up full court on a possession, and LeBron ended up making like a little back cut off of a horn set where he ended up getting a layup. But he defended LeBron well in a post up and forced him into a bad miss, like a little right shoulder fadeaway where he forced him into a bad miss. He knocked down a corner three, playing with the main guys. He's just like, he's functional size and athleticism. Like he's a big basketball player that can do a lot of things. And that's something that this team desperately needs. And so I thought that was an encouraging takeaway from last night.